Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of Creating a New World, the show about the 12 Visions world, a world of wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom that you can help create. I am your host, Bill Hunsaker, and today I am joined by my friend Sage Katagura. Welcome to the show, Sage.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here. It's another good start to the day with the show.
Yes, it is. Today, we're gonna be in our discussion of the 12 Visions world. We're going to be looking at vacations, and I'm going to start that off with the reading of the 12 Visions. Of course, it would have helped if I had the page set up. Okay. Let's see. Vision 1, become the person you were meant to be. I could almost do the first couple by memory, but Vision 2, live the life you were meant to live. Vision 3, feel extraordinary. Vision 4, stop aging. Vision 5, get the job of your dreams. Vision 6, start the company you always wanted. Vision 7, embrace the lover of your fantasies. Vision 8, diet down to the body you always envied. Vision 9, become a genius. Vision 10, surround yourself with geniuses. Vision 11, ride a prosperity wave that will make you a millionaire. And Vision 12, enjoy perfect physical and mental health. So yep.
Yeah, every time.
I always enjoy hearing that.
Me too.
Today's topic is vacations, and the main difference for a lot of people, I wouldn't try to guess what percentage of people, is that vacations won't mean getting away from your job. In the 12 Visions world, it just will mean enjoying your prosperity and sharing it with your family. So a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people will, be running a business that's their passion, and therefore they won't want to leave that or go get away from it for a while. They'll basically take it with them. And one place they may go, an idea suggested by author Mark Hamilton, is a place called Paradise City, which is basically a resort that not only allows you to, relax and enjoy things, but also gives you the capability to continue to run your business and work on your passion. So this would basically be a resort with hotel rooms and office space, and well, not really office space, but space to use technology to run your business, including something that Mark Hamilton also talked about, which people are already starting to develop now in some ways, CEO chair, where you can sit and work at a computer in whatever way, technology develops at that time. Right now, we're getting to the point where voice commands work really well, but we're still pretty much mouse and keyboard as far as entering things. But voice is really starting to develop as a technology, and even direct connection of your brain is in very, very early stages of development right now.
So exciting. I personally like to stand a lot, but they've come up with all these standing apparatuses where your desk quickly converts into a standing platform. Same thing probably with a chair. They have chairs that help you up and get you back down also for people, and you can integrate all that technology with it.
Well, I saw a chair, an automated chair that basically had the monitor mounted on it, and and a tray with the keyboard and mouse, and both were set up in such a way that they wouldn't slide off of the tray, and you
Oh,
could basically recline the chair at any angle, and the monitor reclined and the keyboard reclined with you.
I'd love
So
to see that link if you see it again.
I would be glad to share it with you. And as far as having your brain connected, lots of science fiction shows
Right.
predict that, uh, and that's the most direct way. Although I've seen many different variations, including voice command, which, like I said, is still not perfect, but is growing rapidly.
With
Um,
cell phones, yeah.
mhm. And but in addition to this, at this resort, and people will decide to vacation however they want. They may, you know, everyone will be prosperous enough that they can have, what only millionaires have now, which is a summer home, maybe several homes, and every every place you go will pretty much be private property. There won't be any more public property. People will, what is considered public venues right now, people will purchase them and run them as a business and run them for a profit, which means that they will, create the best experience for anyone who visits those things, such as parks, um, uh, historic places. All of those, they will make the best visit, the
Yeah.
best experience for anyone visiting there, because they'll be running a business for profit, and
Like
those will
Disney,
be,
Disney World. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And so, you know there'll be all kinds of things. There'll be and you'll have this paradise city concept, not just on land, but I mean, even now cruise ships are so huge, and it's almost like being on a floating island rather than a ship. And that
Right.
that concept will continue. There will be people who buy islands just to turn them into
Paradise
resorts,
Island.
Paradise Island, where you know where and they'll cater to everyone's taste. Some places will have golf courses and tennis courts and basketball courts and
They
whatever
have
kind of
that.
physical activity you want to do.
Yeah. And
And
they have those islands being built or concepts that they can set them afloat, right?
hmm And well, I'm talking about these places in general, not just the
Yeah.
island, or and
Sure.
other places will be more nature oriented with hiking trails and or even things like skiing and
Yeah.
or even camping for people who, I mean, and the technology is going to continue to develop where you won't need a huge infrastructure directly around you to be connected. We're going to eventually have satellite internet that's so good, because they're talking constantly about creating a satellite internet um,
Right.
setup similar to the GPS setup that we have now. You know, and therefore you'd have internet anywhere, no matter where you are. And all of this is part of the technology, and this will come faster in the 12 Visions world. Every day, every week, more and more new ways to live better, live happier, and be able to do things more efficiently will appear, and that will include vacationing. There'll be people will basically, you know, that'll be their passion uh, to provide pleasure for people, vacations, place, where you can enjoy the life that you're living and not just, you know, the problem today is people spend most of their time just living, just earning a living.
Yes.
There's some fortunate people who are actually doing what they want to do and enjoying their passion and prospering from it, but the problem is the majority of people in the world we live in today are just earning a living and barely getting by, and we're taught that you work and work and work, and then you go somewhere and
Enjoy the the fruits of your labor.
right, but in a very short period of time, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know, and then you go back and then you're doing something that at the very least you don't particularly like, and in some cases hate, just earn a living. And
It's
you know
yeah, that concept will be completely changed
it'll be
with
completely changed. You'll be able to enjoy your life however you want and mix, uh, pursuing your passion and relaxing and leisure all in. Some people may just move somewhere that they really enjoy living, and that's what a lot of people will do. Just move somewhere where they really enjoy living, and then basically be on vacation all the time, because there's somewhere they really enjoy, and occasionally visit resorts and other places that people are running just as places where people can go to relax and enjoy, you
yeah.
know, and
I
whatever they're interested in. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, my business partner and I, we've built a company and we've paid tons in taxes. And if in the 12 Visions world, there won't be that forced, initiatory forced tax. And that will carry over to people, like you said, being so less stressed and trying to just get by paying for something that doesn't give them any value that they have to pay year after year. That usually, in most cases, only has the potential to go up in percentage wise of what you make.
Hmm.
So it creates that paradigm, and then everybody else, they may not be business owners and they don't feel it as much. Maybe they don't pay as much, but that whole dynamic with everybody contributing to a non-value
Hmm.
makes that dynamic of everybody a little more stressed and not more. I say a little more stressed. I think lessening it down a little bit, and the advances in technology and advances just in all areas of society are being held back by that. And
Hmm.
with that route, it's hard to see, but without that dynamic there, the vacation concept is, like you said, you won't feel the burden of just getting by and the hardships it really does take, the effort and all that to put it forward. It's like a video game. Maybe if people have experienced playing a video game or doing something where you're not behind and you have a little momentum or you're winning when
Hmm.
you totally feel different. I was working this week 60 hours and it's just like when you're just getting by paying the taxes, there's a point that you get to when you're ahead of the game and things are handled and the money's flowing in, and that's a good feeling. Imagine that feeling for everybody more often. It will virtually constantly. We won't have that reason of blaming the society or the government of that kind of burden that we all have on our shoulders.
Yes. So once the government is no longer basically interfering in virtually every aspect of our lives as it does now, um, and then forcing us to pay for their interference, which is what taxes are. Um, you know, Once the government is no longer doing that, number one, you'll keep more of what you earn or
Yes.
what you produce through your business once you
Yeah.
run a business, but even right away, employees will keep more of what they earn, plus everything they buy, all the services and goods they buy will cost less because the cost of
Providing.
complying with the government will no longer be there. Every time there's a regulation or something that a business has to comply with, and they have to prove that they're complying with it, that adds costs to doing that business, and they pass those costs on to the customer,
Yeah. Exactly.
and that's why everything costs so much.
Yeah.
Not to mention that the money is mismanaged, and it's not really money. It's real money has value in and of itself, not you know paper with ink printed on it. Even though it's high quality paper, durable paper, it's still
Yeah.
paper with ink printed on it. It's not gold or silver or some other thing that has value in and of itself.
Right.
The
And it's
only value it has is what we agree that it has.
what a
And
world. What a
yeah,
world of illusions that we're
yep,
in. We're
that's what it
talking
is.
about.
It's you
Yeah.
know, and that I'd rather have a form of money that we all agree on rather than one that is forced on us. And that's what we have right now is
Whenever
we
you
have no
have that,
choice, right?
yeah, whenever you have that, and it takes some integrated thinking or some hard thinking, I should say, or sometimes to get that established. But it's just like eating at a restaurant that makes it, that
Hmm.
any competent product or service you've bought, and they do a good job dealing with reality, not an illusion of creating something of value. It's the value's there, and you know it because of the ending result, and it's
Yes.
think it'd be for the money.
And as long as there's no additional costs, because even as you said, a restaurant, they have to pay for permits, they have to you know uh, they have to follow regulations that require
Yeah,
them to get possibly unnecessary equipment, and I mean, whereas if a place is running, doing their business well, people can tell,
yeah,
without somebody there forcing them to.
yes,
And places that don't do well, they start noticing that things are dirty, or the food doesn't taste quite right, or whatever. People are going to stop going to that restaurant, and it'll eventually go out of business
right.
unless they change and start doing things, you know, to
At a
provide the best possible food for the people that are coming to them. And
right.
that's the whole point. Without the government interfering, people will know when something is bad. The assumption seems to be that you can't tell, and the government has to protect you, from, you know, that you can't tell when somebody's running their restaurant poorly, and you can't see that it's dirty, you can't see that you can't
Yeah,
tell that the food doesn't taste good, those kind of things. It's,
but you
you know,
see, yeah, and the advancements of something when it's living in that competitive dynamic, that market
hmm
dynamic. It's just like Apple. It's you can feel, my God, I'm excited about. You can tell, like you said, a well-run company, and they're coming out with advancements. But if you look around, government, people are okay. They're just trying to do an okay job so people don't revolt. But
right.
they take out the garbage, they keep the roads clean enough, they lock up enough crime uh, criminals to make people feel okay. It's sustainable. It's not the biggest of my issues right now.
hmm I'd say lately they've been slipping more and more. That all you have to do is drive on the roads to see how poor a job they're doing maintaining the roads. Um, I think people. It's interesting when you talk about reducing the government to its only valid purpose of protection, and getting the government out of all these things that it does. One of the first things people ask is who built the roads, and of course the real answer is the same people that are building them now. It just they won't be paid by the government; they'll be paid by someone running a business of providing a road and maintaining that road.
Yeah, and we're betting on the valid concept. If you look at the government from the post office, that's barely
Hmm.
surviving, which is actually based on voluntary consumption because they don't tax you.
Right.
They get funding, of course, from taxes that are forced, but
Well, yeah.
that's only one. That's their shining example of that, their most successful venture, I think. But all their other programs cost so much, and they don't output something. So
Right.
you have that. The business will be, yeah. You hand that to a business owner, and he's the responsibility, the survival pressure is just like in life. It's just a powerful concept of applying a survival pressure to something, either perform or cease to exist. It's a very powerful. It ends up yielding better results in almost every test that it's come up to.
Yeah, it's the only reason the post office is still in business, or the postal service as it calls itself now, is still in business is because the government supports it and you
That
know
they use,
provides money and
yeah.
basically keeps it afloat.
And
It's
you have
been
that
out, yeah.
you have that concept in anything, just like I've seen it in family when they get handouts from, let's say, their parents.
Hmm.
Those kids just don't have that same discipline or have that same understanding of how to do it in a competent way, so that the ends meet naturally without anybody getting forced to do anything.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, the postal service has been outcompeted by other businesses,
UPS,
yeah,
yeah,
other businesses providing a delivery service for a long time,
yeah,
and they haven't had to change or upgrade their service because they're basically you know taken care of by the government, and if they run a shortfall, the government covers it, which
yeah,
means we cover it because it ultimately comes from us. Everything the government does comes from us.
yeah,
The
and,
government doesn't produce anything on its own.
right.
All it gives to other people, it takes from us. That's the basic. Basically the way government works.
Yeah, and a business has to earn that. They don't get it automatically. So you have to
Hmm.
constantly, a business owner has that pressure, that natural pressure to perform and to get
Hmm.
people to voluntarily contribute money. It's simple, but the more you can apply that, and people don't apply that in a big area, which is the civil services of their community. And that's right at home. And it can create a totally different world if either these concepts were understood and then acted on.
Yes, it's just it's a matter of you have to provide a good service or product, or people will stop buying it, and
Yeah,
that's the basic premise of business, and the way human interactions should work. The problem is the government gets in the middle of it. First of all, demands a cut anytime money exchanges hands, and or demands money from you if to give you permission to do that business, permits, licenses, all those kind of things. And you know all of this hampers people doing business and makes everything we do cost more. I mean, there are other factors that determine the cost of goods also, but the government interference is a big factor, and
yeah,
that's what will no longer be there in the 12 Visions world. You know,
you can,
basically, you'll have everything will be a business.
right.
Every piece of land someone will own and maintain, and
And, and that ownership uh, is very, again, it's putting responsibility on somebody that needs to provide something. And you can look at houses, some are dilapidated and some are nice in a community,
hmm.
but again, you'll have that dynamic of there will be more funds and more technologies to help people. So that little effort goes a longer way, with the value not dropping out of the bucket so much from everybody paying an average of. I saw your post today, Bill, on the average taxpayer was 39%, I think,
Hmm.
they pay of their income in taxes. That's 30. That's over a third and closer to half,
Hmm.
or getting to half of it. Not closer to half, but pretty close to half.
And
And
that
that's crazy.
just counts what
You,
you know what is called taxes. Well,
Yes, that's like the tax.
that's income taxes, federal and state, and in some cases local sales taxes, everything that's directly called taxes.
So all that
Yeah.
fund, with all that, you should have value up the
Hmm.
wazoo.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's not, without that competitive dynamic, you won't have that. So people are just, they're not getting for what they paid for. And
Hmm.
that's creating this world that we're just, what we're talking about, like you were going on, Bill, about the cities and the values.
Hmm.
It's hard to imagine like all your little specific needs as a unique individual and mine, my preferences. There would be businesses that could potentially start up because they'd have so much less overhead
Hmm.
and they could work on providing. And it could be just a person working out of his house that would like love the opportunity of applying, of creating a special headset built for you because you have a damaged ear. And
Hmm.
they just wanted a very specific line for headphones that would work for that, hearing impaired person. And from there, they provide that market. They fill that market gap with a product or service
Yes.
very competently. And it's just to have that. I can't stand when I'm on Amazon and I need something and I can't find it. And this dynamic would lead trickle down to you have it, almost everything.
Hmm. And just imagine how much costs would be reduced both for going to resorts or hotels or even apartment buildings if property tax was eliminated.
Oh, yes,
I
right.
mean, that's part of the reason why it costs so much
True,
to live in rental housing in New Jersey because the property taxes are so high
true.
that and that's a big chunk. You know, the uh, the apartment building management passes the cost of property taxes on to onto their residents,
Yeah.
and that you know
Ah,
that's why you
and
know.
the value goes down and the costs go up. And that's just what we're talking about is the exact opposite trend of
Hmm.
value going up and the cost going down.
Right, and so you know ev- costs are going up and up because property taxes keep going up and up. And the only way it got reined in was there was people complained, and finally the state government put a limit on how much cities and towns could increase their property taxes each year.
Ah,
Otherwise, you know, it just I
get-
mean, there was in the 90s, I remember there was that's when the first big property tax increase happened. And I remember people who had owned houses for 30, 40, 50 years having to sell their houses because they could these are people that were retired and
yeah.
because they could no longer afford the property taxes, you know.
Um, it's that's why the 12 Visions party that
Mhm.
Bill also always alludes to is giving that vehicle for people to have something to
Mhm.
a very concrete plan as this plan develops, as the movement develops, I should say,
Mhm.
that they could end that thing because you're right, and it just keeps going on.
Yeah.
And they fight, like you said, they had to fight for the property taxes to go down. I just see these little fires and a lot of effort. The TVP came to my mind. It's like at least this is a cohesive effort that there's
Mhm.
plans in place and a structure so that the gains are kept, and we can make a difference and
Mhm.
do it once because of the exact plan in the national platform of that
And
party.
the problem is that property taxes didn't really go down. All that was managed was they slowed down the rate at which they increase, so that
Oh yeah, yes, right.
that's the
And
way most things are in government.
And to get to lobby and spend more time to try to get the taxes lowered takes a lot of effort and time. And I don't know about you,
Mhm.
Bill, but people are strapped for time. Everybody I talk is so busy these days.
Oh
And
yeah.
they're not at their town councils seeing trying to fight the property taxes. They're
Hmm.
trying to even just spend time with their kids or spend time with themselves just
Right.
to,
They're surviving.
yeah,
They're not living. They're surviving, and
yeah,
that's why. we need the 12 Visions world because people can start living and enjoying their lives rather than just surviving.
I'm in.
Yep. Yep. Okay. We'll move on to the next segment that I like to call "Where's the Force?" And I'm going to pick. I'm not sure if we've done this before, but if even repeating some of these topics, we can get new insights, even if we haven't. Uh,
Right.
but the topic I've chosen today is the computer industry. Sage, where's the force?
Where's the force in the computer industry? We've talked about already. I hate to beat a dead horse, but the trickle down effect of the taxes that the business owners have to pay with the computer industry. Um, they have less regulation in that industry when they first came out. It
Mm-hmm.
was such an unknown subject that the government didn't know where to start, so it was kind of a free for all. And you saw the prices amazingly come down so quickly with
Mm-hmm.
internet service, the websites to set up your own website was they were just giving them away. You can get them. You can get. I believe I don't know I can't remember the cost initially when it started up, but I know the computers themselves. The technology went down so quickly. From Michael Dell, making the personal computer. So, and of course, even before him, then there was Apple and the Macintosh,
Mm-hmm.
and then Bill Gates and the Microsoft computer. But the force was it was less regulation wise. There was less regulations in the computer industry, which you saw the amazing benefit from that in that one industry. Um, and now the um, I see it as the market's established itself a little more. I don't know the numbers of the code, of the regulation codes that are
Mm-hmm.
forced on that industry.
Mm-hmm.
But you have some big players in that market. You have, you know, um, Samsung, Dell, still, Gateway, uh, Macintosh, a lot of other competitors. But once an industry gets established, the government, all they do, not all they do, but that's a source of profit for them and a source of an excuse to exist, kind of. And I've seen regulations just increase over a market once as it
Mm-hmm.
gets the longer it goes, the longer a market exists, then the more regulations it's are targeted at it. So I think the force is growing of the regulations. Again, that's an assumption because I'm not looking at exactly how many regulations are on there. The
Mm-hmm.
prices still fall. The technology people are getting, the technology that that companies and individuals are discovering with nanotechnology and getting more data in smaller units for a cheaper cost based
Mm-hmm.
on breakthroughs. That's where that you're still seeing value spring up and costs go down.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, again, the forces can barely keep up with that. Luckily, uh,
Yes.
right now, but so it's one of the areas that has less force, in my opinion, because they just they can't keep up with the advancements in it. But that, we'll see where that goes. If they can catch up to it, it's very unfortunate. Just like they're trying to make regulations on the internet, and I believe they're trying to apply regulations to those companies developing this software and hardware,
Mm-hmm.
so that there are more hoops to go through, and they can't produce as quickly and create as quickly.
Yeah, another area where I've seen force increase and regulation increases in manufacture. And because of that, a lot of computer businesses have found it um, more efficient and cost effective to manufacture their products overseas rather than in the US
Hmm.
because of the regulation. One specific area I noticed was that Intel,
Uh,
who makes computer microprocessors and other computer, other hardware, um, basically environmental regulations had come to the point where every time they were trying a new manufacturing method, in the past they could implement their new manufacturing method quickly and have an advantage in the market, whereas now they have to go through a 6 month to a year long process of proving to the government that their new manufacturing process won't harm the environment.
Oh, jeez.
And therefore by the time they complete this process, other companies, you know, also develop, and there's no way to get a market advantage, no way
Yeah,
to compete
yeah,
because of the
exactly.
regulations. So,
That's an
it,
ambiguous. That's a really useful one for them too, the regulators, because it's hard to if you can create a standard that's very hard to achieve for
hmm
environmental reasons, which I think they do in some situations.
hmm
They have something to really help them increase, their control over something, their power, pretty much.
yeah, and because of this, they move their manufacturing overseas and
And
out of the U.S. And
yeah,
and that's why the federal government decided that it doesn't matter where your business operates. If your business is registered in the U.S., you still have to pay taxes because all the regulations of forcing these businesses to move their manufacturing elsewhere, or go out of business because they
yeah,
can't compete. You know,
yeah.
and initially that was taking all of the tax revenue away because they were basically doing the manufacturing and all that elsewhere, and so the government had to say, oh, wait a minute, it doesn't matter where your business is operating, you still have to pay taxes in the US. And they did that for individuals too. And that's where all the force is. It's
Hmm.
the government continuing to try to control, and continuing to try to still having its hand out, no matter any you know if they find another way people are exchanging money that they're not getting a cut of, they create a law that makes it so they can take a cut of it. That's the way government works. And because the basic purpose of government is to grow and expand, it's not really to provide a service, it's to grow and expand. And because they can use force to both make us use their services and make us pay for them, they can grow and expand as much as they want, no matter how much it harms people, no matter what kind of service they're providing. They can continue to grow and expand.
Yeah, I look at it, yep, and it's almost, I look at them innocently that they're set up so that they have no real way. They can, but you just need that natural dynamic, the survival pressure on them naturally to
Hmm.
constrict them,
Right.
not for, because if anybody's given the chance to take as much anytime, they generally do.
Yes, they take
And
as much as they can. It basically it's like a parasite that kills its host.
yeah,
and
and take
and
more than you can.
so people are trying, this government is a parasite because it takes,
And it
and
has no,
and
it
it
can
it
produce
doesn't
art.
produce anything.
Yeah, and it
It
has no,
only,
yeah, it's very
yeah,
simple.
yep. And so it's a fine balance whether or not they're going to kill the host, and they keep trying to get more and more without, we're getting pretty close to the point where they're killing the host because people just aren't, you know it's making it more and more difficult to survive. That's what it's doing. And that's why we
Luckily,
need the 12 Visions Party
yeah,
to
and at the same time, the hardest situations sometimes yield the greatest results, and it's the value
hmm
producers in the world
hmm
that tighten their belts and really think new ways to get to survive. And it's just unfortunate that we have to spend all of this energy on surviving, but
yeah.
we will. But this is a path to, yeah, getting over that. So we can put our efforts more on building momentum as getting ahead of the game and
hmm
getting into real prosperity, which is not survival. It's beyond survival. You've
Oh yeah.
established the immediate needs, and you can get on to the expanding unnecessary needs.
Right, and then you can truly enjoy your life and be happy, which
Okay,
is yes. Okay, we're going to move on to the next section, creating the 12 Visions world, and continue our discussion of the uh, 12 Visions Party National Platform, and
great.
go ahead and start that with a reading of the um, Prime Law.
Sure. The prime law, which is the fundamental of protection preamble. The purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. The function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. The prime law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, or coercion by any person or group against any individual, property, or contract. Article 1. No person, group of persons, or government shall initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual's self, property, or contract. Article 2. Force is morally and legally justified only for protection from those who violate Article 1. Article 3. No exceptions shall exist for Articles 1 and 2.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and read the first section. Uh,
Great.
we're in the section on the prime law, and we're on page 43. And this section begins with it says, removing rule of man for universal wealth, including the poor. And it starts with a quote from a Neothink Society member. Uh, Quote, the prime law locks down the fundamental of law and government. The prime law removes man and his endless opinions and agendas and illusions. I can clearly see how ordinary people like me will become very wealthy, unquote. Okay, down onto the platform itself, it says, once we recognize and remove from politics and law the inherent problem of man, flaw-filled creatures easily influenced by power and money, then we will quickly rise into a wealthy world. Even the power will rise, as we will see in part. I'm sorry, even the poor will rise, even as we will see in part 2. Ruling class power must be taken out of the hands of man. Freedom and prosperity throughout history suffered when man created, interpreted, and executed the law. On the other hand, freedom and prosperity throughout history soared when man was removed from the political and bureaucratic controls. Our own country soared when we mostly removed the rule of man, i.e., removed a monarchy with our U.S. Constitution. To complete the evolution into universal prosperity, the powers of the legislative, judicial, and executive branches must be taken away from the opinions and agendas of flaw-filled man and put into a flawless prime law. If you take 100 well-educated men and women and ask them their thoughts on important issues of law and politics, they will bombard you with many different opinions and agendas, as exemplified by the U.S. Senate. Moreover, once in positions of political power, surrounded by the trappings of irresistible power and wealth, their answers become directed for their own benefits, for their own political clout. Man is an easily influenced, easily corrupted creature. Therefore, the laws that govern man, i.e., protect man, must be free of man. The only way to be free of man is to reduce law to its essence. Once at the fundamental nature of something, there is no going deeper. All the opinions, agendas, illusions, dishonesties, and corruption, all man's faults, no longer matter. The fundamental nature stands unchanged, unscathed, unconditional, uncorrupted, plain for all to forever see and know, which is the nature of the prime law. The 12 Visions, a Mark Hamilton publication, demonstrates why protection of citizens is the only legitimate purpose of government and is the essence of law. The fundamental of protection is captured in the prime law, which supersedes all law. The prime law removes man, including all the smart law school graduates, from the decision-making process of law. Law leaps to another level altogether, for the first time completely free of man. The prime law determines the creation or lack of creation of new laws, not man with his endless opinions and agendas and faults. The fundamental of protection, the prime law, determines the interpretation of laws, not man with his egos, selfish ambitions, and many human flaws. The prime law determines the execution and enforcement of laws, not man who is drawn to intoxicating power, rampant dishonesties, and a capacity for evil. When the prime law removes man from creating, interpreting, and executing the law, something amazing happens. The heavy and corrupt ruling class of man comes off society. In that new freedom, as you will learn throughout this platform, society and technology soar. A great technological revolution takes off and causes our buying power to multiply 100-fold, maybe 1,000-fold, making everyone rich, including the poor. We already saw the forerunner with the uninhibited computer revolution, in which buying power multiplied 1,000-fold in a few years. Let us now introduce a new grassroots political party with the sole objective to remove man from creating, interpreting, and executing law in order to make all people wealthy, including the poor. And there is a footnote here, and the footnote reads, "A point of confusion among a few readers has been expressed as follows. You say the prime law will remove man from creating, interpreting, and executing the law. But even with the prime law, man would still create, interpret, and execute the law. Let me alleviate that confusion. The prime law as an amendment to the U.S. Constitution would take complete control of governing and remove man from being in control of governing. The prime law amendment would prevent man from creating, interpreting, or executing law based on any decision beyond the prime law, bound by the prime law, the fundamental of protection. Our government will go into another dimension never known on Earth, a pure protection-only government with no initiatory force that always requires no initiatory force in the governing body. Man will be prohibited from agenda law, agenda regulations, agenda justice that always requires initiatory force. Rule of man will be over. Yes, man will create, interpret, and execute law within the prime law's parameters of self-defense, protection from initiatory force, threat of force, fraud, or coercion. Yet man, our politicians and bureaucrats included, will be prohibited from initiatory force from ruling via agendas. Therefore, there can be no rule of man, just rule of flawless law, the prime law. Indeed, the prime law governs, not rule of man. Man simply carries out the prime law of protection as it applies to society. That complete control over man and complete removal of the rule of man is why I use the expression, remove man from governing, for the prime law takes over governing. Man must still create, interpret, and execute the law, but will do so as dictated by the prime law, void of his own wishes and desires, void of initiatory force necessary for rule of man. Rule of man can never again create, interpret, and execute the law, for without initiatory force there is no more rule. There is just man bound by the prime law to initiatory force-free protection only, the only proper purpose of government. The prime law will finally deliver a purely free civilization, free of the rule of man, and will be the unbridled launch of our human potential. That's the end of the footnote. And then the last part of this section reads, the name of that new political party that removes man from governing, removes the corrupt ruling class, is the 12 Visions Party. Let us next see how the TVP will do that, and we'll do that in the next, probably in the next episode. But right now we'll talk about about this section here. Um, I mean, the basic idea here is that, you know, the Constitution can't protect us because it's, number one, there are parts of the Constitution that allow initiatory force, and there are no parts that specifically say that initiatory force cannot be used. So therefore, you know, as someone I listened to on a podcast said that whatever the government does is constitutional, no matter what it is, because the Constitution, you know, and that's because it's interpreted by people,
Yeah, right.
and not,
And
you know, so they interpret it to mean whatever they want it to mean to accomplish what they want, which is usually to their benefit and most people's detriment.
and it creates a lot of legal costs and time and effort to kind of negotiate with everybody what their viewpoint is, their interpretation of it is, and that's much less efficient on, again, the only valid purpose of government, which the national platform identifies as being
Mm-hmm.
protection only. When you get down to the essence of it, it's really only for protection. So um, all that needless, yeah, interpretation of it would be removed from just the prime law governing people's, whoever's in government signing the TVP contract,
Mm-hmm.
which they would do. They would just be the kind of they're not. It's a total shift of the career politician to just a almost like a very mundane person that comes in just to make sure he's checking off something's done or not. You know?
And actually, once the prime law is in effect, the government cannot operate the way it is. The way it is, it cannot exist the way it is because it's based on initiatory force. So therefore, the protection only portion of the government will be converted from quote unquote government to a business providing a protection service
Yeah.
that other businesses can also provide and compete with that business. So
Yes.
therefore you will have choices and you will be able to get the best protection for you at the price you can afford, which will be, you will be able to afford the best protection basically because you know, without um, the costs imposed on us by government, we will have the money to pay for protection and for use of roads and all these little things that people keep saying we can't have without the, you know, the government. But the only reason we can't have them now without the government is because the government forces us to have them and forces us to pay for them.
Right. and
And
and it just it, it ends up being a world that's very different from the world that can be
mhm.
right underneath our noses right now.
And the I mean, for me, when you people are confused by initiatory force, to
Yes.
me, the
Right.
whole point of the if you look at initiatory force this way, it's not confusing. It's all um, bound up with consent. If you consent, there's no initiatory force. If you don't
Yes.
consent, it's
Very.
initiatory force.
Yeah.
Period.
That's a great way to do it, and that means you're taking responsibility to watch what you consent for,
Hmm.
and you have a choice. You always have that choice there of yes or no, and you can live by that. And when you don't have that choice to say no, that's when there's force there.
And by definition, you cannot commit initiatory force against yourself because anything you do, you consent because you're doing it.
Yes, right.
So therefore, all laws that try to prevent you from doing things that might be harmful to you, such as drug laws, etc.,
Yeah,
would be invalid under the prime law because there's no initiatory force involved.
right.
There's because there's no only initiatory force when there's no consent.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Oh, and it's you can see it's hard to use this just as an example, but Denver with all that marijuana approval on it, people aren't just smoking marijuana. I don't think the usage has gone to where that state is um, cap. It's falling in on itself. It's instead, we're still in this dynamic of everybody in Denver and everybody in the US and everybody in the world is still paying more value than they're getting for, they're not getting a value because they're paying some
Well,
type of forced tax.
yeah, well,
So
of
they're not
course,
feeling
the government said, okay, you can use this stuff, but you're going to pay a premium to use it in the
it. So
form of
there's no,
taxes. So
and
it's still not free use of marijuana. It's or cannabis, if you prefer. Marijuana is a legal term that has
yeah,
been applied, and it has origins in the original reason why they wanted why the original reasons that they use to convince people to make cannabis illegal, in that it um, we're talking the 20s and 30s here, and and basically people were convinced that marijuana made black people crazy and made them rape white women. We're
oh,
talking a different era where
yeah,
racism was condoned and accepted. you know and that's why why it's such a horrible thing, because they use those reasons to convince people to support making cannabis illegal, and also the source of cannabis, which is the hemp plant, but which
yeah,
is something that's so very useful and a natural
yeah,
source, unlike petroleum.
mm,
Petroleum does come from the ground, and therefore it's natural, but hemp is a product that's totally biodegradable and has so many uses, and yet it was outlawed along with cannabis. You know,
yeah.
and you wonder if there were other agendas and reasons
Why
that
not?
weren't spoken
Yeah.
because of that. People who felt that they were threatened because their industries were threatened by the use of hemp. You know, and it's that's unfortunately that's all part of the anti-civilization, the world we live in, because we have people who do things for their own personal interest, and to the detriment of other people, where they put their personal interests above everything else, including other people's lives.
And it's easy to go. I don't even blame them so much. It's when you have this, and yeah, there's certainly blame you can put on them, but the choice, as long as it's there, why don't we just remove that dynamic? That's what that
Hmm.
Primal and the 12 Visions Party is all about. They
Yes,
identified
yes.
it, yeah, and they're moving to remove it, so we don't have to deal with it anymore, and we can get the benefit.
Hmm.
Just keep building on
I
itself
mean,
right
the
away.
the problem is that government at all levels is so pervasive and interferes in so many ways, and has been interfering since before most of us were born, uh, that it seems like normal.
Yeah, you don't feel the weight of that burden all the time.
Right.
There, it's there. The Matrix movie is a great allegory to that.
Hmm.
It's there all around you, but people have gotten used to it, so you're not aware of it as much.
Yeah,
But
you don't think about it. You think this is the way life is, but
it,
the point is that's not the way life has to be.
no, it
It
doesn't.
can be very different, and
Yes.
it can be basically everyone can live their lives and not be interfered with by strangers who they didn't ask to come and interfere with them. That's the whole point. I mean, I say I don't consent to pay taxes. I pay taxes under duress, because if I don't pay taxes, my life will be made terrible, much worse than it is now. It isn't great now, but it would be made terrible. I mean, my life is better than it was 10 years ago, but
Yeah.
only a small amount. and only because of what I've done to make it better. Unfortunately, prior to that, I made it much worse, and I take full responsibility for it, but it's going to take a long time unless things change a lot to make it, to get to where I am actually, prospering and living happily.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be that way. And that's what this is. It's giving everybody the opportunity where you don't have to cover that grand, you're 7 years old and you're just hitting prosperity after years and decades of
Right.
making, of really sacrificing and not living the life not living a completely free life.
Plus living under an illusion where I did things to my detriment without even realizing it, because I wasn't, I didn't learn, and that's partly my responsibility, but also the responsibility of the people who are supposedly taking control of what I learned when I grew up.
Oh yeah.
So I don't say it's not my responsibility too, but there's also responsibility on the other side.
There's another way to go about it, and
Hmm.
we know that. And this is all about those people, everybody watching this and listening to it, that
Hmm.
have woken up to the illusion and don't want it anymore. This is what we're talking about: changing it for all of us together, and where we don't have to go through the struggle, we can actually end it and start benefiting as quickly as possible on it.
Hmm.
It's all here for us. We're getting organized, and we can make that real progress right now, so we can
Yeah, I
stop
think
going
somebody
through.
was surprised when I said, I remember mentioning that, this can be done in 8 years, and they were surprised. I think they were thinking I meant 8 years from today. No, from eight years from when the 12 Visions Party president is elected. It,
Yes,
it
and
will be done. It will be done within his two terms in
sure,
office,
yeah,
and then he will pretty much be the last president, because the U.S. government, well, this also depends upon how quickly the um, the 12 Visions world spreads to the rest of the world, to put it
sure,
one way, kind
yeah,
of awkwardly, because we're still gonna need protection from other governments around the world until they also come under the prime law and cease to be a threat to people in general. That
yeah. To individuals, yeah, living in
they
that.
don't what people don't understand is it's not that government over there or that government over there that's a threat to people. It's every government, including our government. That's where the threat is. And that's the
Yeah,
reason that we live in the world we live in,
yeah,
because governments are allowed to use initiatory force, and
right.
therefore they can do whatever they want, and whatever they decide to do is correct, because they're allowed to, and long as people support the idea that governments are allowed to use initiatory force, we're going to continue to have the world that we live in.
Right.
Okay, we're running just a little bit long, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up briefly. I said I was going to make an announcement, and I'm going to go ahead and make it now. Um, I am no longer running for Congress after discussion with everyone in both in the 12 Visions Party of New Jersey and National 12 Visions Party. This is not a good time to be running a candidate for office. Uh, we are still building the grassroots movement, and we have to do things when the time is right, and not if we try to push things or do things out of order, it will make it more difficult to accomplish what the 12 Visions Party wants to accomplish. So we have to really look at what we're doing and do it in the best way that will allow us to bring about and create the 12 Visions world.
Thank you, Bill. And I appreciate you just being willing to take on that responsibility when, or wanting to. It's whenever the time is right, it could be a help. We'll see. Nothing's set in stone, but it's we're looking at this objectively and trying to make
Hmm.
it work. That's the bottom line. We're going to pull this off.
Yeah,
That's
it's just
what.
a matter of doing it. We got to take the steps in order, and we
Yeah.
can't go to step 8 when we're still on step 3,
It
or whatever
reminds
step
me.
we're on. We've got to do all the steps in between, so that when we do those things, I mean, I'm beginning to be of the mindset that we should not be looking to do these things, but concentrating on the primary purpose of the 12 Visions Party, which is to elect the 12 Visions Party president, and then consider these other things after that purpose is accomplished.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
really leaning that way. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm leaning the same way, and from reading the platform more thoroughly in the bylaws, and I think we can do it if we focus on that grassroots movement, which will help elect the president, and
Hmm.
it'll trickle down into hiring. I mean, getting all the other people in office after that.
Yes. Yes. And so anyone who likes what we're talking about, likes the idea of the 12 Visions world, and wants to help create the 12 Visions world, there are many ways you can do it, and we'll go over them briefly since we are running a little over. You can talk to your friends and family about it. You can contact your state 12 Visions party, uh, and volunteer to help, or contribute money, or become involved in the planning. Uh, those are all ways that you can do that. And the place to do that, if you want to become involved, is to go to tvpnc.org, and there's a place there where you can sign up to volunteer, and they will put you in contact with your state's 12 Visions party so that you can become involved. And also, you can help by you know supporting this show, either by talking to people about it, um, and and or you can go to patreon.com/creating a new world and help us by providing monetary support, $1 an episode. If a lot of if a few people did that, it would go a long way to make it easier to produce this show and cover the costs, because there are costs involved. um, and I would greatly appreciate that. So that's what you can do. And since we are running over, we're going to go ahead and close here. I want to thank you very much, Sage, for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Bill. It always is valuable, and I appreciate being here, and hope other people are getting value from it.
Okay, and I want to also thank everyone who listens to or watches this episode. I appreciate your support. If you have any questions, please send them to cnwshow@gmail.com. You can see previous episodes at www.tocreateanewworld.blogspot.com. Like us on Facebook, just search for CNW Show on Facebook, or join our Google Plus community, also CNW Show. You can support the show by telling your family and friends about it. You can also support the show by going to www.patreon.com/creating a new world and pledging $1 or more an episode. All opinions expressed on the show are the sole responsibility of the individual participants and do not represent the Neothink Society, the 12 Visions Party, or author Mark Hamilton. Creating a New World is a production of Integrated Values, LLC. I wish everyone wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom.